Thank you very much for coming with me live today. It would be great if you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Brodie. I sort of this year and part of last year started to specialise more in SMS marketing for e-commerce brands, and it's been a really kind of exciting space for me because before that I was doing more, I guess, like paid advertising and media and helping businesses with that. But getting into the e-commerce space, I guess, particularly through COVID, saw massive growth, and I guess SMS as well is not new as a thing on its own, but I guess the way it's being used now is becoming a lot more useful, and there's a lot more kind of cool stuff that you can do with it. So, that's kind of what I do, and I love it.
Awesome. So we connected, I think, like a year ago or something, at the time, you were still doing paid advertising. So it's definitely cool to see you get really dig deep into the SMS side of things, and I'm definitely looking forward to our first mutual client together. So I'm looking forward to that. So yes, especially SMS marketing obviously is a big one in e-commerce, and I feel like a lot of clients, smaller clients of mine, are totally underestimating SMS marketing. So I would love to hear a little bit your perspective of who needs it, when to actually use it, and how to use it. So that would be definitely interesting.
Yeah, sure. I think everyone needs to be using SMS marketing.
Of course.
So I specialize in with doing it for e-commerce stores. So there's a lot of brick and mortar. There's any business can really utilize SMS, but I get more excited about specifically for e-commerce because you can really track the data with the online sales and all that sort of stuff. So, look, I think the challenge these days for brands, right, or for businesses, is how do they get attention, and how do they get people to see what they're selling, and how do they kind of get more sales? And typically it's through paid ads, through their email campaigns, or through their social media platforms. And all of these things are constantly changing. It gets harder and harder to kind of cut through the noise. And SMS is kind of, I would say, a relatively new channel, particularly the way it can be used now, that can allow brands to find another way to connect with their customers. And, it is more of a kind of for their VIP customers. So it's not necessarily for everyone, but for their customers that it is for, that do want to hear from them, it becomes a massively profitable channel for them because it's a direct line. Who doesn't love receiving a text message? Everyone opens them. 99% of them are getting opened. The click-through rates and the open rates are amazing. So it's another thing. It's just another channel that brands really should be using on top of everything else.
So you mentioned only using VIP. So why wouldn't you use it then for everyone if it's that amazing?
Well, I guess it's like an email list, right? You grow your email list based on people that want to hear from you. So whether that's customers that have ordered from you or people that have signed up for some sort of special discount code or something like that, right? So that's how you're kind of growing your email list. With SMS, it's sort of similar. So you kind of growing your list organically and through paid means, but you're only texting people that want to hear that want to hear from you, right? So you're not necessarily texting everyone the same thing, and you don't necessarily have everyone's phone number. So everyone that's on your SMS list, you can do different things with them. But I guess for brands starting out, they typically have a fairly large email list, but not necessarily any form of SMS list. And sometimes even if they do have phone numbers, they haven't necessarily collected them compliantly. So there can be issues around that.
Okay.
So that's something to think about.
So how would you recommend people starting to get more phone numbers? Obviously in Shopify, it's a little bit it's very often that you add your phone numbers, but how would you actually push people to get more of phone numbers to make more use out of that one?
Well, I mean, so the way we collect them is through like the website pop-ups. So very similar to the way you'd collect emails on the website.
Okay.
So you can do that. I mean, it depends what kind of tool you're using. So you can use tools like PostScript, which is a great tool that I use. There's other ones like Klaviyo is great. I don't think it's available in Australia yet, SMS, but you know, if you're selling overseas in the US and the UK, that can be a great option because it integrates really well with your email. SMS Bump is another one. So if you're kind of starting out, you can use one of these tools as just an app on your store and set it up to start collecting phone numbers. The other thing you can do is maybe start leveraging your social media or even your email list and to try and get people across to join your list and give them some sort of incentive. So, you might want to give. So let's just say you're a clothing brand, right? Maybe you've got people that are on your email list and you want to get them across to your SMS list. You can give them early access to next season's drop, right? Or early access to Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales, that kind of thing. So you can send an email out to your whole list and try and get people across that way. You can also use your social media, like your link in bio, and the pop-ups on the websites are always really, really good.
Okay. So you're focusing mostly on Shopify, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But it's also like on WooCommerce or like other platforms that to be like, it's a good way to start collecting.
Yeah, I mean, it's available on all the e-commerce platforms. Just particularly the tool that I've gone deep on is PostScript, and that's only supported with Shopify at the moment. So some of the other ones, like maybe Attentive or SMS Bump, Klaviyo, they can plug into all the other ones. So if you are selling on any of the other platforms, you can still do the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, and like, what is a good setup? Because like obviously with email marketing, there are so many different ways to approach it, and I'm by no means like the expert when it comes to email marketing, but I think Mike was already on it as well. Yeah, Mike is great. So what is a good setup for SMS marketing? Because obviously it's much shorter, but what needs to be in there? How short is too short, or like what length is good?
So yeah, does need to be a bit shorter. It kind of depends. You can kind of tweak about like 160 characters. You can go over it. It's just going to charge you a few more credits, but you want it to be more short and sharp and to the point. So you kind of just got to think about the psychology of like, how are people using their text messages? And you're not really there to do the big sales spiel or to have heaps of images and that sort of thing, the same as you would on email. But what it's good for is to kind of hook people's attention, give them that hot call to action, like what is the offer, what is the reason for them to take an action, like to click through or whatever, and then get them over to the website. But there's a lot of cool things you can do, for example. So like for email, you would have like a welcome series, you would have like abandoned cart automations, you would have like loyalty offers and things like that. So you can set up all the same automations with SMS, and when you're using that alongside email, it becomes like really powerful. And it's all driven by customers' behavior, really. So
okay,
not
so
so
you would
much
definitely say
everyone something.
That's good. So you would definitely say to have the strategy, like email marketing, SMS marketing, very aligned, or would you say, okay, they are so different, so independent tools anyway, it doesn't really matter because we can just go independent, or what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to use them together. I think if you're a smart marketer, I think you want to be using them together. Emails, I'm not suggesting that SMS is replacing email at all. Like email is going to be around for a long time, and it serves a really good purpose and makes a lot of money for a lot of businesses. But what SMS is really good for is plugging the holes in the bucket for, a lot of those customers that don't see the emails, they get lost in the inbox. And also for those highly engaged customers that actually do prefer to be contacted by SMS. And, there's a lot of data now that shows people increasingly be like wanting to interact with brands via SMS. not everyone, and that's important to remember. Like, this is not a channel for all of your customers, but there is a portion of your customers that do want to hear from you via SMS, and it's important that you have a presence there.
Yeah, it's like when I get them from online shopping, especially for put me on a waiting list for something, and then I get an SMS reminder. I'm like, yes, because I'm not gonna see that in my email inbox because I have so much stuff coming in there. I'm never gonna see I'm never gonna go through my promotions page. But yeah, when it gets to my SMS, I'm actually happy about that. So I'm definitely a pro SMS person when it comes to online shopping.
Yeah, and it's the thing is, right, I think people's perception of SMS is that can be quite spammy. And if you're somebody that's running an online business, I think a lot of brand owners are nervous that they're going to annoy their customers if they start using SMS. But the reality is now is like the way it works is you really have to get express written consent, and it's just having the right verbiage on your website where people are opting in. So what that means is when people are on your list, they actually want to hear from you, and they've told you explicitly that they want to hear from you. And the other thing is, you're not necessarily blasting the same message to everybody. You're rarely segmenting your list, and it's driven by customer behavior because it's integrated with your online store. Like, if you abandon a cart, you're going to get a text message. If you have spent more than $500, you may be going to get a different message to somebody who's a first-time customer. The abandoned cart automation, like follow-up sequences, will maybe be different for like your top tier customers to your bottom tier. Maybe you have higher discounts for your bottom tier. So it's not just blasting to everyone the same thing. It's really driven by the behavior of each of the customers, and that's kind of becoming more important these days.
Okay, I like that because no one likes to get spammed. So when in like getting started, how do people get started with like a good amount of SMS if they don't have massive amount of traffic? If they just want to like see how it goes, how would you like start?
Well, I mean, there's two ways to do it. I mean, you can do it yourself, or you can get help doing it. But essentially, you can go into your let's just talk about Shopify. You can go into the App Store and set up an account with one of the apps, PostScript, SMS Bump, Attentive potentially, but SMS Bump and PostScript are two that I like. So you can just go in there, set up an account. They make it very easy for you to kind of get set up with those automations. So your abandoned cart, your win backs, your loyalty stuff, welcome series. So you can kind of get started very quickly that way. And if you are starting out, then that's maybe the way to go. If you have a bit more budget and maybe lower on time, you maybe want to outsource some of that, like very much the same way you would have someone helping with your email list or with your paid traffic. And then you're kind of going to get a lot more help. So that's kind of what I would help with, right? And brands can do what I do, but again, it's having the experience and having the time is a big one. So,
so with any kind of you go.
If you want to get started quickly, use your social media and use your email list and use your pop-ups on your website. So set up an account with whichever one you want, and then start using those to start collecting numbers. So that's the way I like to think of it, is like it's like collecting numbers and then using the numbers. So if you're starting off small, just start collecting them and just start playing around and seeing what happens. And it's you'll be amazed how much you can generate with SMS, and then it becomes really exciting because you can sort of see like, oh wow, like for every subscriber I have, I'm actually generating like $50 worth of sales, which is what I think quite consistently.
I love all the numbers that you're sharing on your Instagram, so it's definitely worth checking out. But like, what are the industry standards? Because I've seen like a few ones, and I was like mind blown. So do you have like a few like really good numbers? Thank you, Fiona. So like from my experience, like click-through rates can be anything from like 10 to 30% on your messages, which is amazing. And that's, like 99% open rates. You can't track the open rates on text, but I guess from the data that they've gotten, it's like, right, yeah, not yet.
what I'm seeing with a lot of my stores, it kind of depends on what product you're selling, but for every subscriber is generating about $50 in sales. So you can kind of look at it that way, like what's your earning per subscriber, or earnings per message is another way to look at it. And some of those are kind of around $1 upwards. So,
Awesome.
you start to see like, okay, well, I've got 500 people on my SMS list. I'm generating, let's just say, $20 to $50 per subscriber, or maybe it's $1 per message. You can really start to get excited about the return on that. And it becomes for most people that use SMS, it's like their most profitable channel.
Okay.
It's a smaller channel, but its ROI is higher.
Okay. And in terms of like the costs, because obviously, like for example, Google charges cost per click or like cost per impressions for display. So what is the cost structure for SMS? Do you pay per send out? Do you pay for like email for numbers, or like how do you pay? Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So you pay per message.
Okay.
Per message that you send. So you buy credits, and it's pretty cheap. It's like 10 in Australia. It's a little bit more expensive than the US. So if you're in the US, well done. You get to save a lot of money, and you also get MMS. So you get to include pictures and gifts and stuff, which is really cool, because when you do like abandoned carts, you can send like a little reminder via text with the actual item in the text message. You can't do that in Australia yet, but anyway.
Oh, damn it.
What are we talking about? Yeah, so it's about 10 cents per message.
Okay. And can you choose the phone number that you want to have? Can you does it come up based on like, okay, that's just a phone number, or can you have like a name for it? Or just thinking about customization here.
Can you say that again? What's the question?
So when you send out the SMS, can you choose the number that you want to send it from? Like for example, I want to send it out from my. Sorry, you go for it.
Yeah, so there's different ways to do that. Most of them on the free ones, you'll just have like a kind of like a 1-800 number, so it's a longer form number. You can get a dedicated short code, which is like one of those sort of 5-digit codes, and that's a lot more expensive, and that's more suited to like brands that are doing high volume, because they have more dedicated like telephone carrier space, so when they're sending bulk messages, they kind of get more priority and stuff. But you can't. They assign you a number essentially. So
Awesome.
it's kind of in a nice little thread.
Okay. And like another question that I would be having, what are the pitfalls, or what are the mistakes that people are making when they're starting out? Or what have you seen that is like, ugh?
Well, so the biggest one, right? This is one, it's kind of a bit of a gray area, and it's something, it's using phone numbers that are not compliantly collected. So you can run into issues if you're texting people that haven't given you like express written consent. So for example, if you've just collected phone numbers from your checkout page, almost anyone that's not doing SMS now, if you have a list of phone numbers, most people, those numbers are not going to be compliant. So the biggest issue I see, or not the issue, but the temptation is to use those numbers to start texting. And you can do that because obviously when you start looking at some of these stats on how much you can make back from it, it can be very tempting. But as a service provider myself, that's not something I want to put the client at risk for. But if you are wanting to do that, you can upload that phone number list, but you just got to know that you're running a risk of like $500 per message that you send out. So as a fine, potentially. That's one issue. And the other one is maybe treating it a bit too much like email and maybe not appreciating the sensitivity of the channel. I think SMS messages or like texts are kind of alongside your friends and family, and you really want to be mindful of that and not go a bit too overboard on your frequency and like your timing of messages. So those are probably the two biggest ones. Okay.
And like, how would then people, like obviously people thought about, like, if people have listened to this interview now, they will probably like say, okay, awesome, SMS marketing, I need that. So how would they then get into with you, for example, like what kind of services can you help clients with? Is it like a specific volume that you of revenue that you need for people to be viable to be working with you, or do you also like offer consulting, or like what kind of services can you help with?
Yeah, look, so my recommendation so if you're kind of someone that's starting out and you're not running ads, this is maybe something that you want to take on yourself and experiment with, because you're probably not going to be driving enough sales to make it worthwhile to outsource something like this. So if you're not doing paid ads and you're not maybe spending at least $1,000 a month on ads, you're probably not generating enough to make it. So I would just do it yourself. Do it in-house. Download the app, do a little bit of research, and just see how it goes. If you're someone that's spending like significantly on ads, if you have a really engaged social media following, if you're already doing a lot on your email list and you're driving sales through that, then it might make sense for you to maybe outsource that and get some help. And that's kind of where I can help with, and kind of just getting it set up, the automations, helping with campaigns, segmenting the list, and kind of just keeping the list growing and keeping the list engaged without you kind of having to commit all your time to it.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Brodie. Is there anything like that you want to like add that we didn't cover?
No, I think you did a pretty good job of covering all the bases. Yeah, awesome. I don't know if anyone's. I think it's for anyone that's in e-commerce, it's an interesting channel to look into, and it is something you can do yourself if you're on the smaller end. But I think definitely if you're doing good sales through your store, then it's a channel you should start looking at seriously, because brands that are doing well online, they are doing well because they're able to get in touch with their customers directly, and they're not beholden to like changes in algorithms or like Facebook ad changes or Google ad changes that can like really critical brands that are too dependent on that. So having your own customer list is becoming more and more important. So having a phone number is now a great complement to that email contact that you already have. So something to think about for brands that really want to kick things up a notch.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Brodie. And yeah, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for the chat, Eva.
Thanks. Talk soon.
Okay, I don't even know how to hang this up.